we have an individual. He happens to own one of, if not the largest, vacation rental management companies in the whole state, and he is interested in limiting on who can host properties. And guess who it benefits? It benefits him, right? And he's spent a lot of money, and this is Elliott Rentals, and for HB 3876. I've been pretty vocal to my constituents, to my people, the friends that I have in legislature to vote against this. Essentially, it says now I operate my own properties, this bill does not affect me, right, in any way, shape, or form, right? If you are a self-operator, doesn't affect you. If you are a big box operator, that's a real estate broker, have a state PM license, it doesn't really affect you, but you have to be able to take the money and now remit your own taxes versus allowing the OTAs to do it, right? This affects co-hosts, and we think somewhere between 15,000 to 25,000 properties are going to either have to self-manage or go with companies like the guy that's paying for this bill to be passed, right? To me, it's the definition of swamp, right? Very anti this, knowing that I've stayed in these properties before. These are the bottom of the barrel properties, and I bet they are losing their margins because of the co-hosts are doing a better job, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it's again, big surprise. You got lobbyists paying off politicians to benefit themselves. Weird. We've never heard that before. Right. But it is, it's one of those things that you have to be one. Again, let the consumers choose the best option. Now, there are a lot of states, and I don't know this bill, so you can answer this, but there are a lot of states, if you are going to property manage for somebody else, that you have to be licensed to do so. It shouldn't be a size deal or anything like that. Now, there are co-hosting operations that are, as a property owner and a co-host comes in and I can team up with a co-host, we're in this together, right? They're going to do a lot of the property management, communication with my guests, everything else. Why should I be restricted on that? Now, where the licensing comes in is when you start to deal with other people's money. And so a lot of states say, hey, listen, if you're going to deal with somebody else's money and you're going to take payments, on behalf of somebody else, you're going to hold it in your account, you're going to make payouts and this, taxes, payouts, all that kind of stuff. Many states, and this isn't just South Carolina, I don't know if this is what the bill revolves around, but you have to be a licensed property manager, just like you have to be a licensed realtor to sell real estate, right? And so many states do that. However, they don't limit us being able to operate with a co-host with some different parameters. And that's where I think that if that's shutting that down and you really have the option to self-manage or go with one of the big box property managers, that's a massive, massive loss for South Carolina and a lot of the property owners in those areas, because now you are only, I might not have the time. I don't manage my own properties. I know you manage your property, Josh. I don't manage any properties, never have, never will, but I also don't hire the big box operators because they have, like you mentioned, the bottom of the barrel properties, and they're operated at such a level that they're not going to maximize. They're not going to be at the top of the market. And so it's just a volume game. They just want the volume, right? It's like, hey, I'll just control the market. That in and of itself is something I'd be very, very against.
I mean, just knowing this specific PM and being at one of his properties before, when my sister-in-law started dating my now brother-in-law, we went to Myrtle Beach. And we ended up staying in one of these properties many years ago. And he brought his own sheets. And I was like, man, that is weird that you're bringing your own sheets. He's like, yeah, we have travel sheets. When you go to this area, they don't provide linens. And sure enough, this company does not provide linens. Well, I don't want to go on vacation and bring my own linens. And that shouldn't be, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying to each their own, but we shouldn't all have to stay at a Motel 6 if we don't want to.
No, you right? and run your business how you want to run your business. And you're right. There's a place for that. But if that's the only game in town and all of a sudden the Motel 6 is the only game in town so they can start charging Four Seasons pricing, that's a problem for me. Like that, you just hurt me as a consumer to my ability to operate in that market completely. And so it's a massive, it's a massive loss if they don't have the option to have those boutique managers to work with, the boutique co-host to be able to work with. And, hopefully, South Carolina has a lot of vacation markets, Myrtle Beach being a massive one, Hilton Head, another one. I mean, you've got some major markets that if this bill passes, it probably affects them very negatively, again, without knowing all the details of it, I know it's right in your backyard, so you're a lot
Right.
more up to speed on it than we are. But just my opinion would be, like we were talking about before, you close off these markets and you stop competition from coming in, whether it's from other short-term rental investors coming in, but also on the property management side. If I have to, I'm only allowing these big companies that can basically fit or check off the criteria that this bill is requiring of everybody, and it's not going to allow the boutique operators to come in. The service is going to go down for the guests that are coming in there, bringing my own sheets. I don't want to, if I'm going to Myrtle Beach and all of a sudden I have to fly from Utah, my bag's already packed. I don't want to pack sheets as well, or stop at Walmart on my way to the vacation rental to pick up sheets. Right. So it just doesn't work. And so going back to the Idaho one too, is just saying, hey, listen, we're gonna open this up, and well, let me, before I go back to the Idaho one, you did mention something, because I am actually a fan of short-term rentals. Aren't built to be everywhere, right? Like when every real estate has different uses and that kind of highest and best uses, there are a lot of neighborhoods or HOAs that we buy into. Like, some people hate HOAs. I've always liked living in an HOA because I don't have to worry about my neighbor having a car up on blocks, or the way that they take care of their grass. Like, right, there's rules inside of those HOAs. And so I think it's perfectly fine for HOAs, homeowners associations, to go and vote and say whether we want to allow short-term rentals or not. Just like they say, are we going to allow cars parked on the street? Are we going to allow, is there going to be a rule on how the landscaping looks? All of those different rules that they place, I think is perfectly fine. And they charge for that. You vote on that. When you buy a property in an HOA, you have to understand the inherent risks in that and understand, is it pro STR? Is it pro investor? Is it pro homeowner? Well, like, who's in there? And it allows you to operate. And I don't think that that's overstepping property rights necessarily. I think when you start getting states and counties, municipalities starting to decide what's best for a market, many times they just are not the right people making those decisions. I really don't like, right. I've been in real estate my whole life. I've been in a lot of city and county meetings. I've developed a lot of properties, tried to go to get zoning changes and entitlement changes. It's not to say you're not exactly dealing with the people who should be making those decisions is an understatement in most of those meetings. And so, but HOAs, different story. These are the homeowners. That's where they're living. That's the neighborhood you're buying into. Do they want to operate short-term rentals? If they say no, they say no. I have actually no problem with that, because that's why you buy into an HOA, right? You might buy into an HOA and you're like, well, I want to park my boat out front and it's my house. I'll park it wherever I want. It's like, no, you bought into an HOA and they have rules against that. You know that when you buy into it, right? And so, and I think that's perfectly fine as well.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Mike, anything to add to that? And you're like our creative guy, our design creative guy. We're talking about the rules, regulations, but anything you want to add to that as we put a pin in it?
First and foremost, I hope I sound okay. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty with all of my equipment this morning.
You're good. For the we started without you. I did the introduction without you. I said, I don't know if Mike's showing up or not. We're going to see. We're going live. And sure enough, we got you here, buddy.
Yeah. Here, working off the laptop. But, a big thing I would say from a design perspective when it comes to this, just like you mentioned, parking a boat in the front yard, is a lot of people request signage in the front of their house. Like we design all these really cool graphics for their house logos and what we call like album covers that are thematic signage pieces that we use all through the house and make coasters and all kinds of stuff like that. And we get regular requests to put those out on mailboxes or to put them up on front yards. And I'm always having to tell people, before we do that, you need to check with of that neighborhood, because we have had several times where a house maybe snuck in, right? And it's not that it was against the covenants, but it creates a pitchfork riot by the neighbors when they realize that you're an STR, even though the covenants don't prevent it or the HOA doesn't prevent it, nobody wants it. And then all of a sudden you come in, all the neighbors realize you're an STR, and they literally make your life a living hell because you didn't do the due diligence to make sure that it was an STR friendly area. Or if you don't care, which many people don't, you got to make sure that you just a little bit fly under the radar in the neighborhood, knowing that, we tend to deal with clients that are a little more of the higher echelon of STR consumers intentionally, so that we're dealing with higher echelon clients that come with more respect and less chaos, right? But if you're dropping right in the middle of a neighborhood, I would say just be cautious of how much exterior graphics, exterior marketing, calling it out. This is an STR or a destination.
Yeah, I
Neighbors don't
totally
like
agree.
that.
And it's, some areas are much different than others. You go down to, you go down to Destin, you go in the Smokies, or you go, down to Blue Ridge. Everybody's an STR. It's not that big of a deal. Like your neighbor is probably an STR as well. You start, plopping down in the middle of residential areas, even though you may be able, rules, regulations, CCNRs all allow it. If your neighbors don't like it, we've had many of our members who they were legally and everything was in line. They could get the permits. They were allowed to. Their neighbors didn't like it, and they literally made it, just like you said, Mike, a living hell for them as an investor, but also for their guests. They went out of their way to make the guest experience less than ideal. And yeah,
Every night someone's out on the backpack o'clock. It's good to know what you're getting into. Know your neighbor. Scared of it, because if this needs to be part of the acquisition phase of your due diligence investigation, because I find that in my experience over the years and years and years of doing this, if your investigation reveals that your neighbor is angry, I would say 8 out of 10 times they don't suddenly decide to like you.
Yep.
And like that this
part of when we're in the inspection period, if we go under contract, we actually reach out to the neighbors, let them know who we are, what we're doing. Hey, listen, this is going to be, we don't want parties here. We don't want bad people here any more than you do. Like we try to, like we actually don't try to fly under the radar, because eventually they're going to find you out. I actually want to know that before I actually close on the property. I want to know how my the owners or my neighbors are going to be, and how well they receive me when I go and introduce myself in the very beginning. Okay, so awesome. Yeah. Let's move on. Mike, take your. You might need. You're breaking up really bad. I don't know if it's the earphones. Maybe we can just go right off the laptop. Your earbuds might be. When you're talking, it's cutting out a lot.
Yeah, is that a little better?
Okay, awesome. So next topic, we've got kind of adding to that is one is, and this will be just short. We don't need to add it to it because we actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago. But LA's mayor is proposing a temporary program letting second homes and investment properties operated short-term rentals through December 31st, 2028, because of the Olympics. The Olympics run July 14th, July 30th. With the Paralympics following from August 15th to the 27th. So the planning department originally rejected allowing short-term rentals coming in. And then they looked at it and said, listen, we've got a lot of people coming here and nowhere to house them. And so now all of a sudden we need it. Big surprise that LA just kind of flip-flops on whatever's in front of them. Very interesting, since this is the mayor doing this. Kind of a national mayoral race that we're all watching from the sidelines, because it's fairly entertaining. And so it is, we'll see what happens in LA. But, again, these big cities they stopped, short-term rentals because it was the affordable housing wasn't there, and this was going to solve all the problems. Big surprise it didn't. New York, Seattle, LA, still some of the most expensive places to rent a property, even though short-term rentals aren't allowed. And so they weren't the actual problem. There might be other problems that we need to look at, but just maybe just a note to some of you cities to look at some of the other issues that you've got going on. But it looks like they might roll that back for some of you that are in those areas for the big events coming in. But that's in 2028. I don't know if they're rolling them out right now.